Before I get on with this upcoming global mini ice age and what they're not telling you, I want to actually relate something that I picked up on when they had the Gulf oil spill, the Deepwater Horizon oil spill from BP. If you recall back then, and this is related to the ice age coming up, because I think it's a matter of they don't want to tell people exactly what's going on. It's just a theory, but it makes a lot of sense. Let me explain what I'm going to say here. When they had the Gulf oil spill back in 2010, there was a Matt Simmons who was an expert in the oil field, also a member of the Council on Foreign Relations. In other words, a true insider that was basically blowing the whistle on BP. He was saying that they were giving a dog and pony show, that they were showing a riser that was leaking oil into the Gulf, and when actuality there was actually a blown well, that there was actually two wells, and I'm not going to get into all this detail because it's another whole nother video thing, but there was actually two wells. What they were doing is they were showing the blown riser, and they were trying to say that that was all the oil that was going into the water. And what was really going on was there was a major gaping hole from a completely blown well with the casing all out of the ocean floor, and it was just leaking from deep below the surface, like massive amount. So what happened was they were using Corexit, if you remember that. And I'm going to try to be brief on this, but I'm getting up to a point. They were using Corexit, and they also were trying to drill horizontally to the well to like cap it off deep underground. Now, they had this storm that came by, and what they had to do was they had to pull the ships out of the area. Now, there was something I saw on the internet where they referenced there was a small earthquake they picked up at the time, but when everything after the storm was over, there was no evidence of oil anywhere. It was like it was gone. It was like, this oil spill was all over the Gulf. It was widespread. You could see it from the satellites. It was gone. And so a lot of people were saying, well, the Corexit must have mixed up with the water and it's still in there and it's settled to the bottom of the ocean. But the thing is, the actual gusher stopped. Now, the point I'm getting at is this. The Russians were talking about using a mini nuke to cap off this oil well. And if that was told to the public, I think that's what they actually did. I mean, I can't reference a link on anything, but how the heck did the freaking oil stop right during the storm when all the ships were out of that area? They had like what they expected to be a big hurricane. It was a fairly, it wasn't a really big hurricane, but it was a mild hurricane. And there was no ships in the water, but as soon as they put all the equipment back in place, it was like the gusher stopped, everything. The oil was all turned up into the water with the Corexit. But there was no new oil coming in to the Gulf like the way it was before, just a minor amount compared to what it was before. I think they did use a mini nuke. Now, my point is, they will not tell the public that, because if they told the public that, you know how things are in the alternative media. Actually, I was looking at stuff from Coast to Coast with, I think it was Dr. Bill Deagle talking about, there'll be a major natural gas bomb that'll cause a massive tidal wave 400 feet high going at 200 miles an hour that'll wipe out all the Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, Louisiana, and the southern half of Texas and Mexico and everything else. They were just fanning the flames of everything. So I think if they actually did use a mini nuke, they would have never told anybody in a million years. I think they did, in fact, use a mini nuke because this oil stopped. Now, also, I want to get on to something else. Now, you hear about chemtrails in the sky. I know sometimes, I think that's a fact, that they're spraying the skies with something for some type of reason. And I know there's a lot of conjecture as what the heck they're trying to do. Some are saying they're combating global warming. I'm not going to freaking push global warming here because I think that is a total farce. But what they may be trying to combat is global cooling. And they're not telling people. I know there's other things that are in these chemtrails that are like aluminum, which are very unhealthy. Also, there's probably, I don't know, maybe it's affecting our food supply. There's a lot of theories out there, a lot of conspiracy theories, but I don't knock all conspiracy theories, but I do knock giddy rumors and things that cause people to panic and not think rationally. That's my only point. I'm not on one side of the fence or the other side. I don't poo-poo, oh, that's a conspiracy theory, and I don't jump on the other side and get on every fear-monger giddy rumor that's out there either. But like I stated before, I think they did use a mini nuke in the Gulf, way underground, like way deep, where they did the horizontal, vertical, whatever it was, drilling to get at where the well was leaking very close. They were almost right to the point when they pulled out of there during that storm. They could have very easily placed a mini nuke and sealed it off. The Russians were suggesting doing that, and it did stop. But they would not tell anybody this because it would scare the hell out of everybody, and the massive panic would cause the resulting deaths, injuries, and destruction of property, and it would just be a total mess. So, if there is a massive global cooling coming, the chemtrails could be trying to stop it. Could be. It's conjecture, but let me put it to you this way. I think there's a lot of different things that could be coming up that are pretty freaky, that are going to be far different from your everyday life that could possibly be. If during the last mini ice age, during the 1800s, they had a thing called the Carrington event or the Carrington effect. I think it was 1859. That was due to a solar flare, and it actually fried Morse code equipment. Actually, it was that severe that it even fried Morse code equipment, which is a hell of a lot less susceptible than microchips and things. Well, the reason it was also the solar flares, the Earth was more susceptible to the effects of solar flares, was because during these times when we go into these mini ice ages, the magnetic sphere of the Earth is weakened. That's a scientific fact, and that also makes us more susceptible to solar flares. So we are actually going into a time now where we're going to have, it's been proven now, it's been proven for the last 2,000 years, that the magnetic sphere of the Earth has been getting weaker over time, but it's not going down in a linear manner. It's going down in an accelerated manner. So, in other words, what I'm pointing out here is that we could be very susceptible to another type of Carrington effect that happened in the 1800s. I think it was 1859. And it could fry our entire, computerized infrastructure, the grid, the whole 9 yards. Which, I don't want to play to doom and gloom here, but, if you're a prepper, you're definitely not stupid, okay? If you are a prepper, you're not stupid. I know people think you're out there in la la land sometimes, but it's like stupid until it's needed. That's actually what it comes down to. It's like just about everything out there. Like, in other words, yeah, you could probably drive a car around for 50,000 miles or more and never get a flat tire, but you got this jack in your car and you have a spare tire in your car. It's hardly like ever used, right? But are you a fool to have a jack and a spare tire in the car? No. So, that's kind of how I view the prepper. It's for contingencies. It's not for everyday things. But the fact of the matter is, as the Earth's magnetic sphere gets weaker, which it has been getting weaker in a very, very accelerated manner now in recent years, and it happens mainly during ice ages, we are far more susceptible to solar flares. That is a reasonable statement. That's not a fearmonger thing or anything like that. And just because it's been going ho-hum for so damn long doesn't mean it can't change, and it's not a matter of thinking negative. I'm putting out a fact. I'm not trying to fan the flames of fear. And like I said, I think the people back, it could be that people that are pushing the chemtrails are trying to protect the Earth from this. I don't know. It could be evil or good. I really don't know. Or maybe it's evil and they're being told it's for good, but don't tell anybody because they'll panic them. It could be, I really don't know. It's conjecture. This is just food for thought. Now, actually, there's a lot of talk about how the polar ice caps are melting. You hear this in the major media, and they put these videos out about, how what parts of the United States would disappear if all the polar ice caps melted. Like Florida would disappear, it'd be under like, at least 100 feet of water. Actually, we're probably going towards global cooling. Now, if we're not, I don't want to say how extreme it's going to be, but it's probably going to be pretty damn extreme, like it was 400 years ago instead of the 206-year pattern. And I want to get on to how we're going to know what it's going to be, but we won't know absolutely for certain until 2019, until we start seeing solar cycle 25. But if you go back 11,000 years when we had a real ice age, this would have been the size of Florida. This large peninsula would have been, instead of about, 75 miles wide, it would have been maybe a couple hundred miles wide. During that time, actually, Florida was much colder and much drier. But I was trying to do some research of what happened in Florida even 400 years ago from the Seminole Indians. I could not find any. Well, I'm down in Florida, which is just a point of interest, because this won't be happening until, if this happens, it won't be happening until the 2020s or 2030 or something like that, or maybe beyond. But I was looking for references that can actually state ironclad or some drawing or something, but there have been accounts, hearsay accounts, where the Indians talked about snow in Florida. They talked about the purging, and not just light snow, like a little bit, and also the icing over of the Everglades about 400 years ago. So, but this is not going to happen for several. This is not going to happen not even for several years. Probably a good 10 years, maybe, or 8 years to 15 years, and say in that range, if it does happen. Now, the one thing that we're going to find out if how severe the next mini ice age is going to be is going to be solar cycle 25. And you see this bottom right here, where it says around 2020. Right before it, actually 2019. If in 2019 they show 0 sunspots, we're going to know that that's going to be the beginning of solar cycle 25. And we will know then that it will be the extreme mini ice age like it was 400 years ago. Now, also, I want to point out something else. A lot of people don't realize this. During the Earth's history, 94% of the time of the Earth's history, the Earth has been in severe ice ages, and only 6% of the time it's been in, warming periods like we are today. Now, even during severe ice ages, it's like a large portion of the Earth is covered by ice, and the seas are about 300 to 400 feet below the levels they are now. But large portions of the Earth are still warm. It's like still warm by the equator. It's not really different in the tropics. It's only in the northern and southern hemispheres where you feel this. In other words, the problem, though, we're going to run into, though, is that where the most severe cold weather is going to be coming up is in the bread baskets of Europe, Ukraine, even in Russia, Canada, Midwest, United States. That is where the most severe weather is going to come about. Now, actually, if you look at the sunspot activity, it tells you a lot of what happened. The Dalton minimum is the absolute. It's not going to be. More than likely, we're probably going into the Maunder minimum, which was 400 years ago. It seems to be a 206-year. Well, it's not seems to be. For the last 1,200 years, it's been a 206-year pattern where they go into these mini ice ages. But they have been getting closer and closer apart when you look at the time frame from 11,000 years ago from the major ice age. And actually, in the history of the Earth, man, I hate to put this out because it's almost like a little bit too much doom and gloom, but I'm trying to put out reality here, and it's not something that's going to happen in a week. It's something where you just got to realize that things may change drastically inside of 2 decades. And if you don't start prepping now, actually, if the governments don't start prepping now, we're screwed. Maybe they are with this chemtrail stuff. Maybe that's part of the game. It's pure guesswork on my part. If the chemtrails are for good purposes, it's a possibility. Okay, but I know they wouldn't tell people if it was about the sun's going colder. Boy, they would panic the hell out of everybody. They'd have a mass exodus out of the United States and Europe and everything else. To be going, I don't know where to be going, but that's the point. I think they don't want to tell people what's really going on. I think the government does know what's going on. I'm trying to give you the reality of the situation. But the Maunder minimum actually occurred 400 years ago, and actually most Russian scientists who were actually not, affiliated with, the politically correct Western government that are telling you global warming's coming. Most Russian scientists will tell you that we're going into the way the Maunder minimum was, which was 400 years ago, where there was even snow in Florida. That's how severe it was. All the harbors up in the north were really severely iced over. Now, I also want to point out that we had our last major ice age 11,000 years ago. And it's been on a timeline for, I don't know how many thousands and thousands and thousands of years back they can go, that we've had a major ice age every 10,500 years. So it's said that we were actually 500 years late on our next major ice age. So, we might be going to something even far more severe than even the Maunder minimum. We don't know that for a fact. I don't know, but it looks like the most likely scenario is we're going to have a severe mini ice age that's going to last a couple decades at least. Now, if you look at this chart about the cooling periods, the 70s cooling period, if you remember back in 77, 78, in the winter of 77, 78, we had the blizzard that was beyond belief. And I know some people say that was just due to 3 storms coming together. It was a freak event. But we've also had, that was one of our coldest winters on record, period. So if you even look back here, back here in 95, 96, that was another time that rivaled the 2014, 2015 winters. Now, actually, this last winter has broken pretty much all the records out there. Do expect a lot more of the same and further severity, because this is not something that is a fluke or a one-year event. We're not going to even know what we are going into fully until 2019 is over, because then we'll know what the sunspot activity is. If there's no sunspot activity in 2019, when we can start measuring the solar cycle 25, that means we're definitely going into what is at least what's going to be the Maunder minimum, which is actually before real hard science recorded history. Because in the 1800s, during the Dalton minimum, which was 200, they did have a lot of records in 1700s and 1800s about what was going on with temperatures and more details. But in the 1600s, the Maunder minimum, I think, was 1615 to the early 1700s, I believe it was. That was, basically stories and paintings. It wasn't like hardcore scientific measurements like the way you even had on the following mini ice age, which is in the 19th century, the 1800s. So, we can only guess exactly, how cold it's going to be, but it's going to break every record out there, because we were just at the beginning of this. I'm not trying to fan the flames of of fear and all this type of stuff. What I'm trying to tell you is that this is a reality, and it's something where we're going to be going into this as far beyond what we normally have had, and people need to be prepared, especially in a crop situation. Because where it's like I said, I have to repeat that fact again. The areas like Alaska will actually get warmer. The West Coast is not going to feel it much. They might even get a little warmer. Alaska will get a little warmer. That's been a pattern during the severe mini ice ages and the full ice age. Where it gets colder is Europe, Russia, all of central Canada, central USA, and especially northeastern USA. That's where it feels the biggest temperature of difference. Globally, it gets colder overall, but some sections of the Earth, like, which is surprising, Alaska actually gets warmer. It's amazing how that works. Now, one of the big problems we're going to have is going to be a big drain on our resources. Is what's going to happen in the harbors, because if the ice gets too thick, like in New York Harbor, Boston Harbor, and and it actually could affect our Gulf Stream. It will affect our Gulf Streams. It's actually going to stop goods and materials and everything else from coming into these cities. It's almost going to be like trying to have a city of, New York. I don't know what New York has, 20 million people basically in a metropolitan area or something like that. It'd be almost like having that on current day central Alaska. It's not going to be easy to sustain that many people. It's going to put a great strain on resources. Actually, that's why I think the commodities, especially agricultural commodities, are going to go through the roof. But all of them are, including gold, silver, and oil and everything else. But, this situation's not going to change at all. It's going to we are just at the beginning of the cusp of radical changes in this earth. And it may be that, this global, I know partly I think global warming is just a push for a carbon tax, a global carbon tax, but, I really don't think that the people in our government are that stupid as to not know exactly what's going on when other scientists can readily see it. And it's not really a matter of opinion. And actually, you as a layman, you could observe what's been going on, and I did explain exactly what has really been affecting our weather more than anything. It is the sun. The sun is basically a large energy-driven plasma ball that has ebbs and flows. And when we measure the sunspot cycles past and what comes up in the future, there's been patterns that have been emerging over the last, at least we know very accurate patterns over the last 1,200 years of what the solar activity is. And this is just a normal cycle. The thing is, it's not a normal cycle in people's lifetimes or even people's lifetimes that preceded us in the last generation or even 2 generations. We're talking about what we're probably going into, very likely, is a cooling period that is going to rival or maybe even exceed what happened over 400 years ago. So, it's not something I'm putting out as a doom and gloom type thing, but you better be prepared on this deal. Don't take it as a joke. Don't take it as a giddy rumor. And because basically, what could possibly even happen is, you're watching a video today, and, sometime in the future, if we do have this solar flare, a Carrington event like we had back in 1859 happen again, because we have the reduced magnetosphere that protects the Earth from solar flares, we could easily have a shutdown in our communications, our electric grid, and I don't know how bad that would be or how long it would last or what, but that would really be that would really be a mess. I wish they would get on the ball with this garbage, because I think there's a lot of ways you could protect our systems against this type of stuff, even computer chips, communications and things like that. But everybody's not, the powers that be really probably aren't, unless maybe this chemtrails phenomenon is partly to protect us. Maybe it is. Maybe. I don't know. I really don't know. But I'm telling you what I think. Well, I'm telling you what seems to be the best solid facts of what's coming up. This is not a joke. We're going to have basically 3 things that are coming at us, which basically is the mini ice age, a possible Carrington event, which would cause a, bringing down of the electrical grid and communications and things like that, and also food shortages, because where the mini ice age is coming, is going to be mainly in the areas where the bread baskets are currently. So, and like I said, I don't think they're telling you what's going on because they don't want to panic the population. You know, it may have a lot to do with these deep underground bunkers and all this other stuff, food storage, and I don't know. But, you know, I don't want people to freaking worry their heads off about this, but then again, I don't want people to ignore it either. I don't think it's a joke. I know there's a type of people that just love this type of stuff because it's almost like watching a Godzilla movie or King Kong climbs up the Empire State Building. I know that's why some people love to watch these type of videos because, you know, it's almost like a doom and gloom thriller. Give me more, you know. Yeah, what's gonna happen? Yeah, and then they click off the video and you know they're back to their normal world again, right? It's almost like a horror movie for a few seconds or minutes or hours or how long I'm going on this thing. But the point is, it's reality. It's not reality this second, but you do have a heads up, and I want to point out again where we're going to definitely, you know, the magnetosphere weakening is real. That makes us more susceptible to solar flares. That is why they had the Carrington effect during the last mini ice age, because the magnetosphere was weak. If that happened again today, we'd be screwed, man, big time. I mean, all the banks would be closed. I mean, the whole damn, not everything. You know, the gas pumps won't work. I don't know. It'd be like the Y2K fearmonger garbage, except it didn't happen on Y2K. And I'm not playing fearmonger here. I'm telling you that. I hope this is wrong. I hope there's some yo-yos up there with chemtrails that know what they're doing or something. You know, but I don't know what the hell's going on exactly because they're not going to tell me this. But I do know that if there was something going on, the powers that be might actually be trying to do the best to prevent it, and they probably got all the fail-safe facilities to save their ass first and not us. You know? It's probably the reality of it. They're probably doing their best to freaking prevent it, and they're not going to tell us what's going on. They're going to keep us like a mushroom in the dark, you know, and feed us BS about global warming. And if something goes on, they got all the resources in the world. They're going to leave us out in the cold, literally speaking. Now, the way we're definitely going to know what's coming up and how bad it's going to be is going to be in 2019. You know, you want to keep track of this. That's so many years from now. But you know, between now and 2019, the winters are going to still be getting colder. Maybe not in a linear fashion. Maybe next winter won't be quite as bad. But then the winter in 2017, 2018 might be even worse by far. But 2019, we're going to know what the solar sunspots are, and if they are zero, we're going into something that's going to be at least as bad as 400 years ago. And like I said, that means problems with the food supply and everything else. So this is a heads-up video where everything's pretty much, you know, hunky-dory for now. And I know there's going to be a lot of people out there looking for donations, talking about the Bible says and praise the Lord. And you know what? Go tell those snake oil salespeople to go build themselves an igloo and you know, make enough room for you to stay in there too. Because I'm not into that stuff. I mean, I'm all hands-on. I'm all reality. I don't ignore conspiracy theories, but then again, I don't like playing fearmonger. You know, conspiracies are real, but they're also exaggerated, and they're also sometimes, even when they're not exaggerated and they're real, they're presented in such a way to panic people where they don't do something constructive about it. And that's my whole point about this video. It's like, it's not a panic video. It's not, you know, scare the crap out of people. It's something that I want to present that's real, but it's not going to happen next week. You know, it's got some time. And I'm not putting it out like, you know, famous Alex Jones where he's, rah, 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 rah. You know, I'm trying to be rational and calm about it when I'm talking. A little more like the Jeff Rentz style, which I think he's a little too conspiratorial too by far, but, you know, at least I don't mind listening to that guy. He's out there in yo-yo land, but let me put it this way, you know, we already saw what happened in New York Harbor, what happened in Boston with, you know, the little mini icebergs floating in the water and on the bay, and Hey, it's not a joke, man. It's not a joke. Be prepared. Don't take this lightly. You know, summer's going to be coming up. We're into springtime. Summer's going to be coming up. Everybody's going to forget about this. And then maybe next winter it won't be quite as bad as last winter, because I don't know what the future is exactly. But overall, we're going a lot colder. And we're going to know, like I said, I got to repeat that fact again. I know somebody's going to say, you repeated this 10 times. Sometimes because people miss it. You know, in 2019, that's when the solar cycle 25 kicks in. If those solar sunspots are zero, like a lot of Russian scientists are predicting, we're going into something at least as severe as what it was 400 years ago. The whole Earth is going to change, man. That's before the United States was around. I mean, you know, there's American Indians back then, you know, and you can only go by some of their fables. I remember, I try to find out on the internet, but I even found where the Seminole Indians were talking about the Everglades had ice. It was frozen over, and there was frequent purges of snow in Florida. So can you imagine what it'd be like in the rest of the country? So this is no joke. You got time, and you know, the best thing I'm going to be looking at is growing methods, and I'm going to be doing something right now after this video and start on it, and hopefully it'll be up and produced as a video, and we'll see what that experiment is with growing seeds with Willard Water Dark, and see if there's a difference. So if we can cut down the growing time, there's solutions. We just got to know ahead of time what the problem is, and we will find the solutions. But we can't just sit on our ass and say, you know, I don't know. You know, just see the problem, recognize it, and take care of it. And that's the deal.